Welcome to Nature Network.
We are very excited. We're going to be sitting down and talking with Dr. Jesus Rivas. He is professor of biology at New Mexico's Highland University. And we're going to be talking about one of the coolest animals on this planet.
The anaconda.
That's right. So don't forget to like us and subscribe. And hey, let's get started. All right, today we're talking with Dr. Jesus Rivas, author of this really cool book on anacondas. Now, Jesus, you and I have actually wrestled an anaconda once together back at Albuquerque Zoo. And it's a fascinating animal. And man, we just want to learn everything we can about this. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your book first, and then we'll jump right into everything we need to know about anacondas.
Well, the book is the compilation of 28 years of research studying anacondas. I started in 1992 at first, trying to learn whatever I could, and the more I learned, the more I realized that I didn't know anything, and no one knew anything. So it became this self-reinforcing cycle of very interesting and more fascinating exploration, and everything I knew was a new discovery, and everything I learned was always exciting. So I ended up doing my PhD dissertation with that, and then I continue studying it because it was it's such a place, the place where I do the research, high density of populations, so it has been very productive in terms of data, rewarding personally. And by now, well, I've been studying all the time. At some point, I felt I wanted to make it available for everyone. I had written a technical book before, kind of the compilation of my dissertation, but it was not widely available. So I went to Brazil a few years back, and I was discussing with some colleagues about anacondas, and well, we don't know this, we don't know that. I realized that there was a lot that I knew that I thought that being in my book, or the early book, was available for everyone, but it wasn't. So I wrote this one that is spoken, is written in a simple language. There's not scientific, there's not a whole bunch of statistics or complicated lingo in it. It's intended for anyone who is interested can understand and learn anaconda. But it's not a watered down book either. So if you are a scientist, you have a lot to learn about anacondas with this too. So it's actually it took me a long time to write because, as I said, I was aiming to get this double audience, the interested but not very informed, but also that would be a benefit for people who want to know about anacondas, for scientists, for herpetologists. That want to know more detail about anacondas. So I did that. There has a lot of stories, a lot of anecdotes, a lot of pictures. So yeah, I wrote it kind of with the intention of conveying to anyone interested as much as I can all that I have learned about anacondas.
Now, anacondas they're just an awesome animal all the way around. And so this book is you don't have to be an anaconda fan. You don't have to be a snake fan. Just if you love nature in general, this is a wonderful book about a magnificent animal. It doesn't get any cooler than the anaconda. Now, Jesus, I want to talk a little bit before we jump into a whole lot of the research. Let's talk about anacondas in general. Now, this is the largest snake in the world, and it always goes back and forth with this reticulated python. Now, one is longer, but one is definitely by scale the largest of the snakes.
Right, and I always come back to this discussion. If someone asks you what is the largest terrestrial mammal, anyone who knows anything will say the African elephant. No one gets bent out of shape. But giraffes are a lot taller. So because when you use to size, mass is really what matters. With the snake, because we are long, we overemphasize the value of length, of height. But yeah, for every other animal in the world, when we talk about a size, we really mean mass. And when it comes to mass, then anacondas are hands down the largest. That's why I had no qualms. So yeah, that's the largest snake in the world, and that's in the title of the book. And I have heard people, taking issue with the book from the title itself. Well, this is why.
Yeah, and that's a great analogy. The whole elephant giraffe thing is a perfect analogy. Now, how big do these guys actually get? Not, I don't want to say guys because it's the females that grow massive, but how big do these females actually get?
um, so if you look at the records, there are descriptions of very large snakes and measure people who have measured very large snakes. A lot of those are, if you look at the literature, there's a lot of things that are not necessarily reliable. Where I have studied them in the Llanos of Venezuela, the largest that I had caught was about 5.5 meters. That is about 18 feet. In this is a place that is highly seasonal, so it has a very strong dry season. That is no good for snakes. So I believe that if you really want to look at the largest anaconda there is, the Llanos is not the place, because I'm pretty sure in the Llanos don't really go much larger than that. However, I have heard records and anecdotes of people who tell me about this anaconda. Well, I had many things. I developed a three-prong question to rule out BS. When someone tells me, oh, so it's anaconda really large, I ask, how big was the head? How big around was it? And how long it was? If someone have not seen an anaconda really big, they won't get those three measures straight. They will get, oh, the snake is that big, it was that big around. Well, that big around, well, that's 4 meters. So the 20 meters long, that big around, well, that's a noodle. It's too skinny. It doesn't make sense. So I have a good idea of how they scale up. So a lot of anecdotes, a lot of things people say I can rule out, but there have been about 3 cases in which I had not been able to rule out BS. So I had no doubt that they might get as large as 7 or 8 meters in length. I don't doubt they can grow larger, but these people that report having seen this anaconda head was this big and that big around and that long, and those 3 measurements are consistent. And my estimation is those snakes were like 7 to 8 meters long. Can they grow any larger? There's no reason why they couldn't, but I haven't seen any larger than that.
Exactly. One thing I've noticed with, especially with snakes over the years, is there's always this kind of an exaggeration on LinkedIn. I even get this from zoo people. Oh, we've got this python and it's this long. And I look at it going, you're about 10 feet off. And especially with weight is the big one. You know, I've seen some pretty big pythons. And actually, years ago, I worked with the big female anaconda, and she was pushing about maybe 16 feet, but she was nowhere close to this 500 pounds that I've heard of. Right. Anacondas, they grow up to 500 pounds. So weight-wise, what do you think the largest anacondas are?
Well, the largest, the heaviest that I caught was a little more than 200 pounds, 220 or so. Or a little more than 100 kilos, actually. That'll be like 225 pounds. Again, the larger they get, the weight scales to the cubic power of the length. So from 4 to 5 meters, you have an increase of like 40 kilos. From 5 to 6 meters, you have an increase much bigger. So after 5 meters in length, every extra foot adds a lot of weight. So I have regressions. I can calculate the an anaconda of this 7 meters or 8 meters long that I had no doubt they exist would be in excess of 500 pounds, I would say.
Wow. That's cool. Now, let's find out, how did you get started with anacondas? I mean, that's it's a cool animal, but it's from my knowledge, before you really got into this, there wasn't a whole lot known about anacondas. So, what brought you into working with anacondas?
Because I am a lucky son of a gun. Well, as you it probably happened to you, I did not become an herpetologist. I was one by birth. You know, most of us are that way. That we learn about snakes and things later on, but our love for the animals is there from the get-go. I remember since I was a kid, going to the zoo and the anacondas are in that little pond and then looking into the murky water. So my fascination for that has been there all the time. And I wanted to, in Venezuela, I am from Venezuela, when you want to do, you study biology, you need to do a thesis, a research project. And I wanted to do it with the snakes, of course, but I couldn't get funding, and I had to set off other things. But eventually, I was working in the Venezuelan Fish and Wildlife Service, and there was a confiscation of skins. Apparently, there was some high illegal trade of the skins. A plane landed in Holland, in Netherlands, and had like 2,600 anaconda skins in their cargo. They caught it and they confiscated the skins. And they realized that they had the green anaconda, Eunectes morinus. The plane left out of Venezuela. So they had Eunectes morinus, that is the green anaconda that occurs in Venezuela, but also have Eunectes noteus, which is the yellow anaconda that occurs South Brazil, 2,000 miles from the Venezuelan border. So it was very suspicious. So how did that happen? So they assumed that there was some illegal black market, the legal network of anaconda skins in South America. And the way that the CITES, the Convention for International Trade of Endangered Species, deals with black market is not by putting a police next to every animal in danger, is by developing a market that is sustainable and legal. So the idea is that a black market cannot compete with a legal market, in economic terms. That's the whole point about drug legalization and what have you. So when something is legal, then you can regulate it. You can make sure it's well done. Well, if there's something illegal, you had no control over that. And when you have a legal market or something, the legal market will always replace the illegal one. So I was tasked with the job of figuring out how to harvest anacondas, because as you are right, when I started my project, there was no research done with anacondas in the field. There were field notes that people have published of encounters with anacondas, like one event encounters anaconda. I learned this. It had this on the stomach. It had this many babies. There were a few people who had anacondas in the zoos and had done some research. You probably know Bill Holmstrom. He had snakes. He was at work at the New York Zoological Society at the time, Wildlife Conservation Society currently. He knew a lot about anacondas in captivity. He had published some stuff with anacondas, but there wasn't really anything known of anacondas in the wild. So when this anaconda market came to the light, that there is some people doing that, okay, how do we replace it with a legal market? Well, we cannot do a legal market because we don't know the first thing about anacondas in the wild. So the CITES and the Venezuelan government pony up a pile of money to start a project to learn about anacondas, to learn about the biology, to learn about the status, to see if it was possible to harvest them legally, commercially, sustainably. So that was the job, the homework that I was given. I started doing the project. I had 2 years of funding, and then I started doing that and learning things. As I said, when I got to the field, the main problem is that how do I catch them? How do I find them? I have been studying anaconda. I've been working in the Llanos, in the place where I did my research, for several years, studying caimans, studying iguanas, studying turtles, crocodiles, and I gathered like 3 encounters with anacondas. Me and my friends, me and 3 colleagues of mine who started the project together, have gathered 3 encounters with anacondas in like 20 years when you add all the years we have been together. So how could we, in 2 years of funding that we have, do a research that will learn all this stuff? So we went to the folks, the people in the Llanos, the people who work the land, cowboys, really. They are cattle ranchers. They call llaneros. So they run around herding cows through the wilderness, and they have gathered plenty of encounters with anacondas. They knew a lot about anacondas. They use all the knowledge to avoid encountering them. So when I asked them to tell me where to find them, so I was completely crazy, because why on earth would I want to find anacondas? If I was gonna eat them, I was gonna kill them, it's just to find them and then play with them and let them go again. It made no sense. but they taught me a lot, and listening to them, I managed to start learning. And once I started learning, it was a self-feeding process.
There are currently, what, 4 species of anacondas altogether?
They are the green anaconda is the largest distribution. It goes from Venezuela all the way to southern Paraguay, even Brazil, Bolivia, Ecuador, all the Amazonia and the northern part of the southern part of the Amazonia, and Cerrado too. That is the largest one, and the one with largest distribution. There's the yellow anaconda that occurs to the south. It's in Pantanal, it's in Argentina and Bolivia, Paraguay too. There is also the Chauhensi anaconda. It's an anaconda that occurs in a small island next to the mouth of the Amazon. It's not a small island, a giant island, but an island called Marajo. And also in some other places in in French Guiana, to the northeast of the Amazonia. It's morphologically similar to the yellow anaconda, but it's surrounded by green anaconda, by the big one. And there has been another anaconda, the Beni anaconda. It's an anaconda that occurs in Beni, is a region of Bolivia. That is another species that is described as a 4th species of anaconda. This last one does not have any molecular support. I mean, the description is only in morphological terms, but I have been doing some genetic work in those. It doesn't seem to be all that different from Noteos. So it might be, I suspect, and I still need to do a little more work on this. It might end up being a subspecies of Morinos or just Morinos. Sorry, of Noteos or just Noteos. Mm-hmm. But I will let you know about that in a few months.
Very cool. Was it that the Bolivian one at one time, wasn't it suspected it was maybe a hybrid between the green anaconda and the yellow anaconda?
The person who described them first said there was a hybrid because it had things of Moteos and Morinos. Okay. But then he looked into that with more detail and did a whole, and that was his dissertation, the revision, morphological revision of the whole genus Eunectes, of all anacondas, and concluded that it was its own species. And I do not have any, I mean, morphologically, you know, I haven't done the work that he did, revising the morphology of enough specimens for that. So I do not, in terms of morphology, I don't have enough to dispute. I cannot dispute what he said. I accept his conclusions. But when I look at the genes, genetically, that Bolivian anaconda is way too similar to the yellow anaconda. So I don't think it grants the status of a different species, but I don't know for sure. I'm working on that right now.
Sure.
And the other species, the Chauhensi, the one that is distributed, there is no molecular work whatsoever. I just got my hands in a sample of them recently, and I will be working on those also. So hopefully we'll have some neat description of that soon. Answer that question.
Cool. Now, the anacondas you're working with, you're working with them in the Llanos, not in the major river systems, but in the Llanos area. Is that
right?
Correct?
The Llanos is a hyperseasonal savanna. That is sits in the northern part of the Amazon. So it is I can show you some picture to the location where it is. They have larger rivers. They have all the systems, but basically it's a hyperseasonal savanna. That is what I have studied them the most, because that is where they're easiest to find. I mean, the advantage of the hyperseasonal savanna there is such a strong dry season is that it concentrates the snakes in the water bodies. So there are more snakes in the area, in the water for you to search. In the Amazon, in the areas that are not as seasonal, is so much water that even there might be a lot of snakes, but they are not concentrated anytime. So if you go into the Llanos and trying to find anacondas in the wet season, you won't find anything. For the same reason. So the Llano had the advantage that during those 3 months of the year, all the water is reduced so substantially that the anacondas get concentrated, there is a good time that I had taken advantage to catch snakes.
Well, let's jump right in. I want to know everything I can't know everything you know about anacondas, but what have you found with these? Tell us about their habits and their diets and breeding and all that fun stuff.
Well, so the first thing that strike the eye when you look at when I started studying anacondas is how different the size are of the male and the female. So because we are mammals, we had this bias that males are larger than females, and that is true in a lot of mammals. But it's not true in snakes. It's kind of the opposite. But in anacondas, it's extreme. So the female is far larger than the male. The one of the movie, the one that scared everyone, the one that ate the pigs or the neighbors. The scary one is always necessarily a female. So through the study early in the first year, I noticed that if an anaconda was about the size of my forearm or smaller, it was almost a male. If it was any thicker than my forearm, I could pretty much be sure that it was a female. So the ones that grow any larger than that, then you know that is only females who do that. So that difference was very interesting at first, but also it determines a lot of the biology, because then to grow that large, the female have to start eating something different. So when you look at the diet, they mostly birds. First, they eat a lot of jacanas, a lot of little wading birds, and it is common. And they have some turtles if they can, or so baby iguanas if they can, or so baby caimans if they can. But predominant, mostly they are teeth based, so to speak, on birds. But after the male reaches to say 6 to 8 feet. That is as long as males ever get. So maybe 8. What is that in pounds? 20 pounds. That's a big male. So most male have like 6 to 8 kilos too. So that is the size they get. By the time they pass that size, they start switching. They start eating a lot of more iguanas, caimans, turtles, capybaras, deer. So that they start switching substantially to other to more nutritious prey, because birds are good for you, right? When you can't eat too much fat, eat chicken because that's good for you. But for the female to grow to that large size, she doesn't need to diet, right? You need to eat something fatty, and so I start switching to reptiles. So pretty much almost entirely drop birds from the diet, and start focusing on larger mammals and reptiles. They still eat on ducks, because ducks, the ducks that migrate, gather like the like Canadian blueteal. By the time they are living, it's a relatively small duck, but it's have like a blubber, a finger thick of blubber around the body. So there's like a bacon wrapped snack. So they eat those still after they are large, but they stop eating pretty much all the other smaller birds that they eat. So because I learned that they had different size, that was interesting. But then the different size substantially determine the difference in diet. And it's probably determined by the difference in diet. When they are little, when they are young, male and females they're born about the same size, and they eat about the same thing when they are young. But with the females, hit that mark of 9 feet, 8 feet long, 9 feet long, then females start switching to eat more larger prey, and males stay in the good for you diet of birds. So males don't grow any much past that, while females become much larger. And I know that there is both a genetic and an environmental component to that. This friend of mine, Bill Homestead, that I told you, he had two snakes, two anacondas, a male and a female siblings, full siblings, that he raised in captivity. By the time I met him, the male was a monster, 40 kilos monster. Never seen a male possibly anywhere close to that big. but the sister was like 80 kilos. So they grew up together at the same time, fed the same diet, and the male was larger than males get to be in the wild. Because he was fed, of course, rats and mice and mammals, very nutritious. He wasn't in the lean diet that wild males eat in the wild of birds. So he switched to mammals, which in females produces large size. In him, he produced large size too, but not quite as large as his sister. His sister grew double the size, double the weight. But the male became a lot bigger than other males would. So that sexual size dimorphism, I'm pretty sure has both a genetic component and an environmental component. So the males are meant to grow smaller than females, and in the wild they remain substantially smaller by feeding in lean diet, as opposed to a female that goes for larger diet. Of course, larger males, in the case if you're talking about a caiman, you have a very nasty snapping jaws there. So it's a when the female makes that decision to eat larger prey, it really taking a considerable risk, because then the capybara is like a guinea pig, and it's adorable, but it has the same kind of teeth that a guinea pig has, but it scale up to the size of the capybara. For people who haven't seen a capybara, imagine a guinea pig the size of a Rottweiler. So that is now scale up the teeth of the guinea pig to the size of the Rottweiler, and now you have a capybara. So to eat that, sure, is nutritious. There's a lot of meat there, a lot of fat, a lot of nutrition, but also very serious biting teeth. With the addition that capybaras are social, they live in groups, right. 6, 8, 20 individuals. So when the anaconda gets one, starts squeaking, the other ones come attack the female. So the female who gets a capybara is really taking a considerable risk. I have found female anacondas covered with capybara bites or scars that could have been from capybara. I have seen at least in a couple times evidence in which an anaconda was killed, and I am pretty sure it was killed by a capybara. A bite on the neck, it's a hard life. So the price for the anacondas to grow so large, so they can have all those babies and all that, is steep. I mean, there is not just they had the switching diet to something so much larger is also a lot more dangerous. So that is one of the consequences. Yes, they need to get larger, and because of that, they need to eat different meals, and now they have a different mortality. So I would thought that the males being smaller have higher mortality than females, of course, because they have fewer predators. A large female, no one eats a large female anaconda. But the male anacondas can be eaten by caimans, can be eaten by by different cats, by foxes. I have seen if they are smaller, by hawks. So I would have bet anything that males have higher mortality than females. But over the years, I have done mark and recapture. So I have done I have been able to use some statistic models to determine mortality and survival. And I encountered that female have a substantially lower survival than males. And the only thing that can explain that is the mortality associated to those two things, to eating larger prey and giving birth. Because anacondas are, as you know, they are live bearers. They don't lay eggs. But not only that, when the anaconda goes gets pregnant, she stops eating. She eats before she gets pregnant, accumulates fat reserves, and possibly because it's so dangerous for the female to eat. Every meal is such a dangerous thing that she rather gets the energy, and when she's pregnant, she doesn't raise her babies. And then she fasts for the whole 7 months of pregnancy. After that, then she has a bunch of live babies, anywhere between 10 to 80 or 90, depending on the size. Small females will have 10, 12 babies. Larger females can have as many as 80 or higher, depending on the size of the female. So that was the next step on that.
I had a big female anaconda that she was, I don't want to call her a cannibal because she didn't need her mate, but she would eat boa constrictors, anything else I tried to put on exhibit with her. Man, she would just go right after them. And
Yeah,
it
I
really
have seen.
surprised me.
Yeah, well, snakes are, there's some snakes that are ophiophagus, right? That the job is feeding other snakes. But I would say that just about, not all, but many snakes will eat other snakes if they are in, if they find them. Anacondas are known to eat boa constrictors in the wild. They do. There are a few reports of that, and they are known to eat other anacondas. So
Really?
I have found actually it's probably sexual cannibalism. It is as I said, during the pregnancy, the female does not eat. So when she mates, because it takes so long for the female to accumulate the fat reserves in order to reproduce, and there are fewer females because they're higher mortality. By the time the breeding season comes, then it's an unbalanced sex ratio. There are a lot more males than there are females. So when I go into the field and the mating season, I find a breeding aggregation. There's one female and sometimes one male that wraps around her, but sometimes it's 4, 5, 6, up to 13 males can be wrapped around a female courting her. Uh, so that aggregation lasts for about 4 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks. I have recorded. So there's a long time of all that courting and mating. The female, in all likelihood, mates with several males during that period. Um, and at some point when she's done, she, decides to go away because she's so much larger because she leaves anytime she wants. And during the pregnancy, she would sit on higher elevation, basking a lot. So that is the only time. There's two times we see anacondas basking. One is when they're pregnant. Another time is when they are wounded. They have an injury. They give themselves fever. They just sit on the sun basking a lot, like getting the temperature like 34 degrees Celsius. That is what, like 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Uh, um, Giving themselves fever for a while, and that likely is used to fight infections. But before the female does that, she's mating with all these males, and she's gonna spend 7 months without eating. I have seen a few cases in which she just takes one to go. The After the when the mating aggregation ends, she just grabs one of the males, the one she likes the best, I guess, and eats it. It's 7, 8 kilos of meat. You're gonna go fasting for 7 months. Might as well take that. So I have found several cases of males anacondas eating males. There's a beautiful picture taken by a friend of mine from Brazil of an anaconda actually constricting and killing a male. It's in the book, in the part of mating.
Now, are the anacondas with the breeding? Are they? Do they have a specific breeding season? Is it correlated with the rain season in any way?
It is in the dry season. So the dry season in Venezuela, so it stops raining in October, November, and then at the time that stops raining, this savannah is flooded. It's like very much like an ocean in some places. Sorry, and then the water, there are a lot of sun, a lot of wind, a lot of evaporation, not unlike our beloved New Mexico. Um, for several months, by the time March rolls around, all the water has been reduced and concentrated. The month of April, actually, right now, is the end of the dry season. If we could go to Venezuela right now, I will find you at least an anaconda in a matter of hours, 2 or 3, because this is the time where there are lots and lots of anacondas. It's the end of the dry season, so it's when it's the driest, and rains are upon us. The rainy season begins mid April, mid May, so it might be started raining anytime now. So this is the mating season is precisely at the peak of the drought, and then all the rainy season, the female is basking, and then the babies are born at the beginning of the dry season again, at the end of the rainy season. It's probably a time where all the birds have hatchings. All the wading birds have the babies, are laying eggs in June, in July, blah blah. In September, October, at that time, all the jacanas are running around. There are a lot of those. Baby caimans are hatching too. So I think that it's time kind of for that part. And as the water concentrates, of course, prey concentrates in the water bodies. So that is my guess about their timing.
The timing. On the feeding thing, now these are kind of an ambush predator.
Yeah.
The anacondas. And I had one many years ago at the zoo, and she had a big aquatic environment. And when I was in there working, she would swim over to where I was and just have the eyes and the nostrils above the water.
Yep.
And the rest of her, you could see her just winding it up down below. And just getting ready to spring. It was kind of unnerving. It was cool, but it was like, wow, she's actually, you wouldn't even see that coming in the wild, with algae and stuff. It's incredible.
And something that I learned, and happens also with other snakes. If you have like a ball snake, you have a snake attack, quote unquote, attacks. A slow telegraph mouth going at you. And you see that with anacondas too. When you're handling anaconda, the anaconda tries to catch it, just, the mouth coming at you. That is the last that you want is to catch you. The one that you want is to bite you. That's not an attack, it's more of a leave me alone, for God's sake. When anaconda attacks, the predatory attack beats the eye. You can't see. It's faster. They have seen in occasions, I was a little heron walking along, and the heron turned into a knot with an anaconda. I was watching it. And in that time, the anaconda grab it through the loops, wrap it. And my eyes did not detect any of that. You would need a high-speed camera to see what happened, because when your eyes see prey, not with anaconda on prey. So the predation attack, even of a large, heavy anaconda, super, super fast.
Yeah, they've got quite a sharp set of teeth as well. I've been on the business end a couple of times, and they leave the teeth behind, kind of leave you a little souvenir as well.
They do. The teeth of all the snakes, as you know, they come out easily.
Yeah.
So when they bite, they are curved, and they intend to grab, because the job is to grab, to hold the prey, but they throw the loops. So they're not intended to let go. So they have evolved to stay there, and they do. So when there's any struggle, the teeth are likely to come off, yes, and leave you in your skin, and then they will give you a nice infection if you don't get them out, as happened to so many of my friends.
So you've got a pretty unique way of finding these anacondas. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Anybody who's seen you on television or knows you knows that you go in barefoot and you find a lot of these snakes, if not all of them, just kind of feeling around with your feet. How did that come to be? Because that's a little odd to me.
Well, yes, as I told you, I learned to look for anacondas from the old folks. The old folk is from the Llanos, right? And those are the ones who taught me. Look, in those places, in that vegetation, you go poking there, you will find them. It so happened that they all go barefooted wherever they go. They're not gonna get their shoes dirty in the mud. In the one hand, I started doing. One other thing that happened is that I started looking for them with shoes, sneakers or something. The mud is such that I will pull out of your your feet pretty much anything you put in there. So even a sneaker has to be really well tied up in some places to keep them. That's one problem. The other problem is that after a few months doing the research, I developed a fungal infection, like athlete foot, but all the way to the ankle, past the ankle. Horribly. So I eventually went to the dermatologist, came to Caracas, took a break, and the guy was terrible. Oh my God, what is this? Never seen anything worse than that. You can get your feet wet for the next 6 months, but it need to clear. So, well, I cannot walk on my hands. Uh, so it turns out that I decided to go barefoot like the like the Llaneros did, and I worked for them. But also when you get out of the water, your feet get dry immediately because it's dry season too. The minute you get out of the water, start walking in the sand, it's like putting powder on them. So that helped heal my feet because then I got them wet to surf for the snakes and they got dry immediately when I got out. Um, and the other benefit is that yes, when you step in, there's things in the under the mud there are anacondas that you want to catch, but sometimes you find turtles, you find caimans. I step on lots and lots of caimans, more than 100 caiman. A caiman is kind of a smaller alligator cousin, right? And they sleep. They sometimes they I think they are kind of in some kind of torpor or kind of low metabolism activity, and they just under the vegetation, and you step on. Oh, what is this? Or something you touch it. This big thick crest. Um, if you are barefooted, you can feel the crest sooner, and then don't mess up with it. Just go around that caiman. And I know if you don't have the sensitivity, you are more likely to bother it, and then you might get beaten by those guys. And they are, as I said, they are surprisingly nice, despite of that. But yeah, so that is another advantage: the early detection of whatever is in there. When you get the habit of learn walking barefooted, you learn to pick up your feet really good. Really, you get the better sensitivity to when something really you pick up your foot because could be a thorn, could be a this, and that added habit, I think, help make things even safer. So.
Now, how do you go about? Okay, once you're walking through and you feel the anaconda, what's your mode of capturing these snakes?
So first thing, when you detect that is something that you identify, you touch it. First, you feel some lump, you touch, make sure it's a snake, and then when you feel the scales of the snake, you can have a guess of where the head is because the scales are on top of each other, right? Are superposed. So you can know where the head is that way or that way, but you don't know how coiled the snake might be. So all that you do is you grab it, and by the size of the scales and the width, you have an idea whether you are in the center or you are towards one of the ends, but you don't know which end, right? If it is thick, then you know you're in the center. If it is thin, because it tapers down toward both ends, right? So if you are close to the end, you have a good chance of holding the snake, but you're also a chance of being bitten by the snake. If you are towards the tail, then if you don't make a good grip, you're gonna slip through your hand and you're gonna lose the snake, right? So that is the decision making, getting there, trying to find out, pulling out, and then when you lift it, the snake is starting to swim away. Then you identify where the head is, and then ideally, normally we do it several people, at least two people, and then someone holds the tail, and then somebody else reaches for the head, and then it's when you grab the head, when the head is contained, and now the snake does all kind of, it has a kind of, because the head of the anaconda is very vulnerable. So it's protected with an armor of muscle, right? The whole body is very muscular. But the head is very vulnerable because the head, like all snakes, have adaptations to swallow large prey. And there's a trade-off. When you have all those mobile jaws and joints to eat something large, it comes with the trade-off that you lose bulk. A bunch of things that are solid bones in the skull of a lizard, for instance, are mobile, silly moving joints in the skull of a snake. And that makes the snake very, very vulnerable. The head of the snake is very vulnerable. So when the chief is in any trouble, the first reaction is to wrap the body around the head. Because if any attack or anything, she can do more things. But, so long as the head is protected, she can heal from horrible wounds as well. So her first reaction to protect the head. When you grab the head, then the snake's trying to wrap around the head to protect the head, but then it wraps your hands around too. which is never fun because eventually you might lose your grip. You end up with your hands tied up and the snake face, right next to yours. Not a fun thing. Has been there. So that is the so after someone grabs the head, then the 2 or 3 people get into a business of controlling, and so I call that the evil loop. So because you have the head and all those loop that the snake is doing to try to protect the head, end up wrapping you up. So the first I use all my effort and all my strength to fight with the first 4 feet of a snake. That is what the loop is doing. So the snake, when you grab her, she's not really worried trying to wrap around me and squeeze me. She could, but she's so worried about her head that she's trying to wrap it up to protect it. So I can use all my strength, all my 200 pounds to control 4 feet of a snake only. I'm not wrestling the other 12 feet. I'm just wrestling the first 3 or 4 that I have next to my head. And so with that, I can continue stretching that. So the idea is that the snake gets very tired because she's doing a lot of effort to protect the head. They have an anaerobic metabolism. So they because their physiology, they have a lot of strength, but not a lot of stamina. That's true with all reptiles, with crocodiles, with everything, all reptiles. So she after I wrestled with it for 10, 15 minutes, at the end of that time, I'm wrestling only 4 feet of a snake, not 18. And because I have aerobic metabolism, at the end of that period, I'm exhausted, I'm panting, but the snake is out. This they lose is so tired that it much becomes a heavy rope to carry. So that is kind of the strategy to do that. And of course, you always need several people. You cannot do that yourself.
Yeah, for anyone out there who's never grabbed a big snake like that, the power that these animals have, it's just extraordinary. It's like grabbing an anaconda. It's like jumping on a crocodile. Once you get going, you're committed. There's no turning back. Once you grab that snake, man, it's on.
Right. If you let go, then you are in trouble. So you're not the same thing with the crocodile. The first time you grab an anaconda, you feel the skin is smooth. It's not slimy, as you know. But a lot of people, it's wet. So it might be wet if it is in the mud, but the skin of the snake is super dry. But when you press, you feel the muscles inside that skin. It's really awe-inspiring.
Cool. So what is the lifespan of an anaconda?
I don't know. Longer than I have studied them. So I have so they grow slowly. In the wild, they don't eat often. An anaconda in captivity, as you know, in a year can put on a meter, can grow 3-4 feet in 1 year, and continue doing that for a few years. So an anaconda in captivity can become 3 or 4 meters long in a handful of years, 5 6 years. But in the wild, that doesn't happen in the wild because feeding events are a lot more far and few in between. So I estimate that anaconda becomes adult around 5 to 7 years, depending. Females take longer, about 7 years in females, about 5 years in males. And adult meaning the age at which they start reproducing. So 3 meters in females and 1.2 meters in males. So it takes about that long to become adults. And then they grow very slowly. They grow yearly. I had recapture from year to year, so I know how much they grow from year to year. And an anaconda to grow. So I caught this anaconda 1995 on the market, and I caught it again in 2007, 13 years later. Wow. And it had grown. When I caught it, it was 3.5 meters. When I caught it 13 years later, it was 4 meters. So it grew half a meter, 2.5 feet, 2 feet in 13 years. So how long will the snake take to get to 18 feet, to get to 5.5 meters? Um, so I estimate that the big anacondas are probably anywhere between 30 to 50 years old. Those big 5 meters long ones. And that's estimation because of course we don't know if they grow very slowly through their life, or they grow fast and stop and grow fast and stop. It's believed that when they reproduce, the year that they reproduce, they don't grow much, and then when they don't reproduce, they might grow some more. There is some data to that effect, but it's fairly unknown. I know they live decades. I can say that more than 10 years for sure, more than 20, more than likely. Um, I don't know that they live more than 50, probably no more than 50. That would be my guess, but I really don't know. I probably will spend the rest of my whatever's left in my lifespan trying to figure that one out.
Well, I mean, it's, as you pointed out, it's a rough life, especially for a big anaconda, and capybara with those big teeth and things like that. It's a rough way to go. Just finding food is tough enough, but then taking down some of that big prey. You're taking down a capybara or a caiman. That's not an easy job.
Yeah, no, not at all. I've seen a caiman, an anaconda that is constricting a caiman, and when you look at the caiman, the angle is kind of in a V shape, in an angle that caimans don't bend their back. So the anaconda has broken the caiman's back. This is a 7 feet long caiman, stronger than any human being, and the anaconda has, because the constriction is not only constricting but also pulling and twisting. And that incapacitates the prey, that breaks the spine of the prey. And the result is that, of course, the prey has this broken spine, cannot fight anymore. So the constriction is the killing a caiman is quite a job, and they have to, because those jaws are really dangerous things. So yes, it's definitely a hard life to be an anaconda. It's interesting, it's fascinating, but if I come back as another animal, I would like to watch anacondas, but not necessarily be one. Maybe for a while. I would like to be an anaconda for a while to see to experience the life through their eyes.
Gotcha. Yeah. I'm amazed that the digestive system of these guys. I mean, they eat a caiman. They eat turtles too.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
and nothing comes out but poop.
Yeah.
But they digest the shell of the turtle.
That's crazy. That's impressive. That
is impressive.
That's about as efficient of a predator as you can really get. Now, what would you say? What's the conservation status of these? Where are populations still pretty strong? Is this something we're not sure of, or what's the situation?
So anacondas, because they have such a large distribution, that is a good thing. It's like the American crocodile. American crocodile was hunted down to extinction just about everywhere. But because distribution go from North Carolina to southern Brazil and from California to southern Peru and all the Caribbean, so the distribution was so large that even though it was hunted down in most of the distribution, it's still around and it's doing okay. Similar with anaconda. The green anaconda, it distributions all South America, all the lower tropical South America, all the Amazon, all the Llanos, all Cerrado. So that is a large area, and there is a lot of wilderness still there. There's little human density in all those places. So they are okay as long as number of animals. The problem is that because they are a top predator, they depend on intact habitat. They need prey. They need a variety of prey. So as humans encroach into the habitat of the anaconda, the first thing that humans do is eat the prey. Eat capybaras, eat peccaries, eat tapirs, eat turtles. So pretty much humans, when they go into the forest, they start hunting all the game of the anaconda. So the anaconda has no food. Humans bring pigs, bring chickens, bring dogs. All of those are potential prey of the anaconda. Now the
Right.
humans ate the anaconda again, then the anaconda wants to eat the human livestock. And of course, humans will kill the anaconda because it's eating their livestock. The anaconda is potential danger to a person, it can definitely kill a person. So as humans encroach into the habitat of anaconda, main reason why all predators in the world are in danger is because they either eat humans or eat things that humans eat. Anaconda has that are there. So as humans encroach into the habitat of the anacondas, the problem always get the anacondas have to lose. So the habitat of the anaconda, even though currently is large, and many places that many huge extension of pristine habitat where anacondas are doing well. The fact that humans are constantly encroaching, there is no stop in the habitat destruction. That is the concern. That they need big extensions of pristine habitat, and if we start eating into that, the anacondas are gonna end up declining as well.
Interesting. Interesting. The what would you say is the most surprising thing that you found working with these anacondas? What surprised you the most working with them?
Well, everything was that it would be hard for me to pick up one thing. Everything was surprising. I was surprised. The first few years, I was surprised every day, and even nowadays, every time I go, every year I return to the field, I'm always wondering what I will be surprised about this time, because it haven't failed. Every time there is this new thing that, oh, holy crap, I didn't know that. So every time there's new interesting things. So there are many things surprising. But I'll tell you what one of my friends told me when they started learning about anacondas. The interesting things about anacondas is that they are interesting. Uh, because you will think that watching reptile watching is not necessarily a very fun activity. A lot of people view snake watching as something boring because a lot of snakes are not very active, but anacondas are. So this person thought it was surprising that watching anacondas is fun because they are there, they are active, they are active. You see them, they're normally doing something. They are reproducing, they are stalking a prey, they are digesting. So or they are crawling around, males looking for females. So she was surprised that the anacondas are in are interesting. That is what you found that's interesting for anyone, not so only for the scientists, but for anyone. So that would be the surprising thing of anacondas.
Very cool. Yeah, I many years ago I did radio telemetry with timber rattlesnakes, and every time I thought I knew everything there was to know about that animal, it would do something completely different, and it was just to this day, I don't think we'll ever know everything about their behaviors and what they do and what they're capable of doing.
Yeah, that's the beauty. The first year, oh my God, I learned so much. Second year, okay, I just get a little more data because I already learned. And oh my God, all new things. And year after year after year, 28 years. And still, I keep discovering things that I didn't know. So that's the beauty of this career.
It is. And you're still going to continue. You plan on doing this for a number of years yet.
So long as I can get up. I have been so far, I have been able to study anacondas in this place. I have been able to establish a connection with colleagues in Brazil, in Bolivia, in Peru, and to start similar projects. And some of those have been with yellow anaconda, with Benny anaconda. I would like to pass the baton, of course, at some point. I will not be able to exhaust all the mysteries of anacondas, and what I'm doing is establishing connection with people, helping jumpstart other projects that might shed light of, because the place where I study anacondas all this time in this one location in Villanos. Very good, very productive, know a lot of stuff. But the anaconda has such a large distribution that what I know applies to other places. And now I know that not everything, but enough things apply. So not everything applies, but enough things apply that I can help people get other projects in other places and do a more kind of a network study of anacondas to learn everything about them in the whole distribution. That would be the goal.
Yeah, definitely. Well, cool. what's the takeaway? What do you want people watching this? What do you want them to know about anacondas?
Love them. They are fascinating animals. They share the planet with us, and it is our duty to share the planet with them, and to share in good terms. And So what I would like everyone is to learn some love for the animal. I guess that's why what I wanted the book to do. People to preserve the planet in the world will require people to do sacrifices, and people want sacrifices for things that they don't love. So instilling love for nature, I think, is the only way to really get anywhere in protecting the planet. And if anacondas can be as ambassadors for that, if anacondas are so charismatic and so beautiful that people do something, for the planet, for the anacondas, then we all win. So my what I would like people to do is to spend some time thinking and caring about the snakes, about what that means for every. If you can think and care about something so different from you as anaconda is, well, you can care for a lot of things, and that's the only thing that will actually get us through this, adolescence, the developmental adolescence that we have. So that would be my goal.
Very cool. Well, I don't want to keep you much longer, but Laura and I definitely want to join you at some point.
Absolutely. As soon as COVID relinquished, we are all in a plane to go catch snakes for sure.
Yeah, I'll toss my shoes aside, and I'm looking forward to it. That'd be
Remember
cool.
that time I invited you? I was ready to go, and you were too busy at the zoo, couldn't come.
Yeah, I that's the way it always is. I've got a little more time now. Now I'm doing the museum thing. It seems like I've got a little more time. So,
all right. Well, hopefully next year. So this year, of course, the hunting season just finished. But next year, hopefully COVID is under control enough that we can do that.
Very good. Very good.
I'll keep you in the loop.
Great. Well, Jesus, I don't want to keep you much longer, but I'm going to put up where folks can get your book. And I recommend everybody get this book. It's really great reading. And again, you don't have to be a snake person to enjoy this. It's just fascinating all the way around. This is a magnificent animal that we share this planet with, and learn all you can about these, not just this animal, but everything and how it all ties together. We're only here for a short time, and man, I wish I could live forever and explore everything that there is to explore. But man, I try and cram it in just as much as I can.
That's right. That's the only thing we can do. Well, though, thanks for having me, man. Having fun chatting with you.
Thank you, Jesus. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care, buddy.